Hello everyone. Tonight's topic is regarding literary theory. You can go ahead and press stop right now if that turns you off. I was going over some old books tonight. I felt like delving back into my undergraduate years, and I found this book by Terry Eagleton, Literary Theory. And I was just going over some of my notes, and I came across an interesting underline, and I had just gotten done reading Covey, and he is overviewing the concept of values, that values and principles are things that never change, that in the larger scheme of things, there are certain things that are always going to be what they are, concerning values, ideas of right and wrong, such and such. And as I was reading this, I came across something that was really interesting. It says that there is no essence of literature whatsoever. Continuing on, he says that because literature, in the sense of a set of works of assured and unalterable value, distinguished by certain shared inherent properties, does not exist. I'm going to repeat that. Literature, in the sense of a set of works of assured and unalterable values, distinguished by certain shared inherent properties, does not exist. The value of literature is based on a certain time era that, let's say, literature that was written in the 7th century AD could be applicable today, but in a different context, that the Homer of ancient times is not the same Homer of today. He goes on to write that value judgments are notoriously variable, which is true. It's not as though we still subscribe to certain belief systems that leeching and bloodletting are good medical practices, though in some cases they might be. We don't believe in killing off sick babies or putting on old people for show if they're senile. It's not how things are done. And he raises a good point, saying that what was valuable then is not valuable now, which applies to literature. He writes that the fact that we always interpret literary works to some extent in the light of our own concerns might be one reason why certain works of literature seem to retain their value across the centuries. However, he goes on to say that no work and no current evaluation of it can simply be extended to the new groups of people without being changed, perhaps almost unrecognizably in the process, and this is one reason why what counts as literature is notably unstable. I'm going to have to agree with him on this, and I would have to say that in a larger scope of things that most people would as well. I would assume, assumptions are dangerous, but I would assume that most people watching this would agree that the certain works of ancient literature, let's say, everybody knows the story of Gilgamesh. They know, some people know the story of Inanna. Most people have heard the stories of Isis and the such. Certain Mesopotamian stories, even Aztec stories, the Mesoamerican mythologies, as they were written then, it may not have the same meaning as today. Granted, many of those societies are long and dead, but it goes on to reference, I suppose, or mostly make people think that what was important to us yesterday may not be important to us today. And that brings me into a contemplative state regarding the years that I spent in college and university, studying what I studied and accumulating this large body of knowledge, which ultimately, indirectly benefits me today, but ultimately does not do anything for me directly, aside from the fact that it served to educate me. The value that people place on knowledge and the pure acquisition of it, as stated in Hesse's Steppenwolf, is that I believe they called Harry Haller, the main character, that he was a good, unthinking, happy child. That he was totally caught up in the pure acquisition of knowledge, and he had absolutely no direction in his life. He didn't know exactly what he was here for, but he knew a lot of things. He was very well traveled, very well educated, and towards the end, in the scene of the Magic Theater where he gets a chance to encounter Mozart in his dream world, Mozart laughs at his face when he sees Harry's his expression. He's entirely distraught by the fact that he's coming to realize that life isn't all about acquiring knowledge. There's more to it. He says in a very funny way that really struck me that it was the entire essence of the book. On page 207, he says, "Hey, my young fellow, does your tongue smart, man? Do your lungs really pinch, man? You think of your readers, those carry-on feeders, and all your typesetters, those wretched abettors and saber-wetters. You dragon, you make me laugh till I shake me, and burst the stitches of my breeches. O heart of a gull, with printer's ink dull, and soul sorrowful, the candle I'll leave you, if that'll relieve you. Betiddled, betattled, spectacled, and shackled, and pitifully snagged, and by the tail wagged, with shilly and shally, no more shall you dally, for the devil, I pray, will bear you away, and slice you and splice you, till that shall suffice you for your writings and rotten plagiarizings ill-gotten." That, to me, is the entire essence, or the lesson of this book, is that Harry Haller is a very well-educated, very intelligent man in his 50s, and yet ultimately he comes to realize that his life has had no value at all, aside from the mere acquisition of knowledge. It makes a person wonder about the importance of what they do. That what was important to me just 2 years ago, even 1 year ago, maybe less, was the pure acquisition of knowledge, and getting as much of it as I could, acquiring the largest body of understanding that I could, of every single perception that was out there, of anything there was to perceive. And that, of course, gave me a very good foundation to go out and communicate with people and try to understand where they're coming from. That communication is, the key part of communication is listening. It's not speaking effectively, though that is a very important aspect. It goes into 2 more pieces that I'm not really going to read entirely. However,